All right, Steeler fans, welcome back to the second half. It is time for some people's favorite game. Man, I don't think I did too well last week in the over-under game. Looking at my sheet here.
You got two.
I did. Yeah, I didn't do as bad as I thought. I didn't do as bad as
You got the same as many as I did.
Okay.
But Brian got 4.
Ooh, wow. He don't call it a
only
comeback.
one Brian missed was the one we all missed, that we all took the under on the takeaways because Cincinnati had been so good at protecting the ball. Yeah, not on Saturday. Other than that, Brian got them all. So he moves into second place.
Wow.
I'm in the lead with 34. Brian's in second with 30, followed up closely by Jeff with 29.
All right.
So that's what we got, and let's get this going.
I've only had 2 good weeks. That's the last 2. That's it. I've sucked all year.
Well, we've got let's hear. We've got
finish strong.
We've got 6 tonight. We've got 6 tonight. And 5 of them are about the offense. So hope y'all are ready to put some money down on the offense. Let's start off with Rudy. Mason Rudolph passing yards. I went 225.5. Brian, what do you think?
You know, I still think that's fairly safe. Win or lose, I think he's going to be over 240. Even if he had it at 240, I might have flirted with the over. So I'm going with the over here.
Okay. Dave?
You said 225.5, right?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So Brian's going with the over. You know what? I'm going to take the over as well. I don't know that it'll be a lot over, but it just seems like that's what the Steelers are going to need.
They're going to need it. So I'm going to go over as well. I probably could have had the line a little bit higher, but went conservative. Now let's go Rudy touchdowns. I'm setting that at 2.5.
Is that
let's say
any
pass?
Any
no, this is
touchdown?
pass. This is pass touchdowns, passing touchdowns. So Brian, what do you think? Over under 2.5.
I'm feeling the under on that, Jeff.
Okay.
Brian, I keep writing mine down before I hear yours just because I don't want to be influenced. I am as well. I think 2's good. 3 is really pushing it because if you listen to Stat Geek, what's better for Seattle? Their pass defense or their run defense? It would be their pass defense. I think the Steelers can run on them. I think the Steelers can get rushing touchdowns. Therefore, they won't have to get as many passing touchdowns.
This sucks. I'm going under as well. We're agreeing on everything. That's not fun. I'm not going to gain any ground that way. I know the red zone defense for Seattle has gotten better in the last few weeks, so they might be able to stymie Mason Rudolph. Let's go with a player who did nothing in the offensive category section last week, Pat Freiermuth receptions. So I went with 4.5. Some might think that's a big jump. I really don't think it is. Brian, what do you think? Over under 4.5 Pat Freiermuth receptions.
You know, I am going to actually go against my gut, and I'm going to say the over here. And the reason I'm going to say the over is because I kind of feel that they're going to, when somebody gets shut out the next week, they don't want it to be 2 weeks in a row. And so there's going to be a concerted effort to get the ball to him. And if you're listening on audio, you did not see Dave wince. So I'm going to tell you right now, obviously he wrote down over as well. And I don't care if I lose, Dave, go with your gut. Be true to yourself, David.
Yeah, I'm going with over as well because the number, when Jeff said Pat Freiermuth receptions, I popped the number into my head before I heard his number. And the number I put in my head was 5. So I thought Jeff did a great job setting that line. We'll see how it goes. Now, my reasoning is this is not a familiar opponent. This is not the Cincinnati Bengals that had Pat Freiermuth tear them up 4 weeks prior and came out and said, we're not going to let that guy beat us. If the Seattle Seahawks are watching tape on Mason Rudolph, which, you know what, they're an NFL team, I think they might actually do that. What are they going to see? They're going to see him throwing a lot of balls to George Pickens. Even though he only caught 4, they're going to see a lot of yards going to George Pickens. And I think the Seahawks will take the approach of, we can't let that guy beat us. And kind of like Freiermuth said after the game, he said, hey, if they're going to keep sending 2 guys my way and leaving George 101 out there, then we'll just beat them that way. I think this is the week that there's going to be the overcorrection of a defense to go after Pickens, and I think you're going to see more Freiermuth and Johnson.
All right, I'm going to go I'm going to go over because I'm trying to do what I want, but I think it's going to actually happen and not just try and win points. I'm going to go over as well. How about Jorgito Pickens? His yards, 82.5, Brian, over under.
I'm going to take the under on this one. I just don't know if he follows it up with a booming game like he did last week. We don't normally like to do this, especially when the Steelers give up a long touchdown. But if you take away the 86 yards that he had last week or 84, what was it? 86? 86. If you take that away, he still has 109 yards for the game. I just don't think that. I think the concerted effort that they're trying to get to Pat Freiermuth is going to trump the concerted effort that they gave to George Pickens. But remember, he only had 5 targets last week, if I'm not mistaken.
5 or 6. Yeah, something like that. It wasn't
check just because I'm curious now. He had 6.
Yeah.
So 6 targets, 4 catches. That's correct. And you know what? For that, that matter, that doesn't mean you're going to have the blockbuster game you did, because they didn't really just try to force the ball to him like crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point. Dave, what about you?
Like I said before, I don't think it's as much as what the Steelers trying to force the ball to certain guys or work in certain things. They're trying to work in Mason Rudolph, and they want Mason Rudolph to be able to succeed and not have to worry about making this guy happy or that guy happy. They're going to take what the defense, if the defense is going to throw a lot at one player, you're going to take what they give you somewhere else. Now, I would not be shocked if Pickens has the same number of receptions as last week, but just doesn't find those yards. But yet he could once again have one reception that beats this total like he did in the early moments on Saturday. But for that reason, I think Seattle is going to be is going to kind of take an approach of anybody but George. So therefore, I'm going to go under.
I will say over. I'm trying to just get back in the game a little bit. So I think that even if they are hitting Freiermuth and they have to start cracking down on him, it's going to open up some things. And I got to get out of the Matt Canada mode where I think that this offense is completely inept and not able to scheme someone open. I think that they might be able to do that, especially with Mason Rudolph at quarterback. So we'll see. The next one, last one for the offense, Pittsburgh Steelers team rushing yards. I have 135.5 combined. Last week, I think they finished 113. Brian, what do you think? Over under.
Okay,
I know you
135.5.
I like how Dave said that they could run on this team. I really think that this is a good running team, but I was fine with the 113 that they got last week, and our line was 120, and I mysteriously took the under, and there was a time in that game I'm like, well, I'm going to lose this, and here they continued with the under. So I'm actually going to think that the duo of Najee Harris, if he plays, and I think he's going to, and Jaylen Warren could have a great game, but still take the under. So I'm going with the under.
All right, Dave.
You confused me. I thought we finally disagreed. I'm going with the under as well, because although Seattle does give up a lot of yards, they give up, like 127 yards, something like that. I think that line's just a little bit too high for me to take an over on.
I'm taking the over.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Steelers run the ball well. I'm taking the over. All right, last one. Pittsburgh Steelers defensive sacks. Have it at 2.5. What do y'all think? Brian?
I'm going to go over. I love what I love what this team is doing. I still think that TJ Watt is a man on a mission. I really like how Alex Highsmith is coming on like crazy as well. Yeah, let's take the over.
All right, Dave.
Brian, I hate to say this because I wrote it down. You will not make up any ground this week because you and I have the exact same picks the whole way across the board.
I'm fine with that.
I'm taking the over as well. I think they'll have at least 3.
I'm going over as well. I think they have a good game. And Geno Smith is known for taking a bad sack or two here or there. So I have the over as well. All right, let's talk about the line. The Steelers line that I have is the Pittsburgh Steelers are getting 3.5 points on the road. and the total is 41.5 points. So, Brian Davis, how do you see this game playing out?
I tell you what, I really think the Steelers, are they a team of destiny? No, but they're destined to get that 7th seed to make the playoffs, and to do that, they're going to win. I'm going to go ahead and say that they win this game. I think that they're going to win the game by a score of 20-16, but I'm taking the Seahawks just because every time I take the Steelers, this team loses. So call it what you want. I'm taking the Seahawks in this game just because I'm superstitious.
What was your score?
20-16.
20-16. Okay. What about you,
Which
Dave?
would then be the under.
Yeah.
Well, I could be superstitious all I want, but then again, whatever I say actually has no outcome on the game. My thing is the Pittsburgh Steelers, this is not an easy task to go in and face this team, but this is what they have to do in order to stay alive. And the fan base is starting to believe, but more importantly, I think the players are starting to believe that it can be done. So I'm going to go with the score that I think the Steelers could very well do, and we'll see if that happens. I'm taking the Steelers in this one. I'm taking them 27-17.
Well, I like your Steelers total, Dave. Definitely has the line that I'm looking at. I have the Steelers going on the road, winning a tough game, making enough plays at the end, and holding off the Seattle offense when it matters most. I've got Steelers 27, Seattle 21. Seattle 21, Pittsburgh 27, which is obviously the over, and take the Steelers getting the points. So, all right, let's do some trivia. Go ahead, Brian. What do you got?
I have a million trivia today, and I promise I'm not going to do it because when the Steelers are playing the Seahawks, some interesting things happen. Just that last time that they played in Pittsburgh, my gosh, TJ Watt won the game by sacking Gene Smith like crazy towards the end, forcing overtime. It was a heck of a game. I could go back in time and talk about what I teased earlier, the quarterback on quarterback glory, where the record for the longest reception was 90 yards for the longest time from Terry Bradshaw to Mark Malone. I could go back to after that game when Mark Malone ended up starting to play more because Cliff Stout punched a mechanical bull and was out for the rest of the season. I can go back to 40 years ago when they won, the only time they won in Seattle, when the 2 running backs for each team were number 1 picks out of where? Penn State University. Kurt Warner and Franco Harris. I could do all that. But this is a special day. This is a special birthday. This is the birthday of somebody that Myron Cope called he and him. It's the Terrible Towel. 48 years ago today, the Terrible Towel was born. So, in honor of that, I've got a couple Terrible Towel-based questions. Myron Cope always had something to say, had a catchphrase with the Terrible Towel. And what was that?
The Terrible Towel is poised to strike.
Dave?
That's not correct.
I'm asking you.
Well, I agree with Jeff.
All right. Well, I tell you what. You can let me give the answer, but why don't we let Myron give the answer?
And this carried the Steelers all the way in 75. It imputes great strengths to the Steelers and, if need be, poses mysterious difficulties for the enemy. You'll see thousands upon thousands of Terrible Towels waving out in those stands today. The Terrible Towel is poised to strike. So are the Steelers.
All right. I love that. Oh,
I was going to say, but
I tear up when I hear that. Okay. So originally when Myron, what happened was the folks at TAE, the big guys, called him into the office and said, hey, we need a gimmick. He goes, I'm not a gimmick guy. And he said, but you got to come up with something. Your contract's almost up. And this is according to Myron, so I don't know if it's true or not, but it makes a great story. So he told everybody, a black, a yellow, or a gold towel, whatever you have. If you don't have one, buy one. If you don't want to buy one, what?
Borrow one.
Dave?
I have no idea. Knit one.
If you don't want to buy one, die one.
Die one. There you go.
All right. So the gimmick thing, the captain of that team back in 1975, he came out and said, "What's this cow crap I'm hearing? We're not a gimmick team." And Myron's like, "Yeah, well, where did I hear that one before?" But this guy wanted nothing to do with it. Who was he, and what did he do in that playoff game against the Baltimore Colts?
I can't answer because I know the answer. And that's
Okay.
because Brian and I were talking before we went live.
No. You don't know the answer.
Oh, so it's not that guy.
Yet is not that guy.
Okay.
I got nothing.
It was the great number 34, Andy Russell, who wanted nothing to do with it, but he ended up with a 93-yard fumble recovery return for a touchdown in that game against the Colts. So suddenly it was okay. And the final question here, who does Myron Cope give credit to? It's a player. He gives credit to this gentleman for being the first one to twirl the towel a couple years later and get them to doing the twirl and giving, making this just a viable thing and a symbol of Pittsburgh Steelers football. I tell you what, guys, before I do that, let's go to the soundbite of this gentleman talking.
We got the best offense, the best defense, the best QB, the best running back, the best everything, best coaching staff, the best front office, and we got the terrible talent. What more do we need?
Hey, who is that?
Jeff?
I would have known anyways, but I do know because of what Brian said before.
Okay, Dave, I'll let you go with this.
With who that is? I'm gonna go with Mel Blount.
Jeff?
Well, there's actually two voices there because they're talking to each other at the end, and they're both wide receivers, Dave.
Oh, okay. So is that Swan and Stallworth?
Yeah.
Yes, Lynn Swan is the guy who did it, who did most of the talking. The only thing that John Stallworth says there is, "What more do you need?" But that entire diatribe was all Lynn Swan. I tell you what, I learned more things about the terrible towel just researching this. These sound bites made me feel good. I love it.
Good stuff.
I just assumed it was more of a defense thing. That's why I said it.
No, good trivia, Brian. That was good to relive some of the terrible towel memories. All right, Dave, you're up.
Well, I half expected this trivia from Brian, so I had it ready in case. So I actually have two pretty quick ones. So I'll do the Brian trivia first. Steelers are playing the Seahawks on New Year's Eve. How many times have the Steelers played on New Year's Eve, regular or postseason, and what is their record?
Well, I will tell you this. I know there was a few significant losses on New Year's Eve. A huge loss. One of the worst days in Steelers sports history was when they lost in 1972 to the undefeated Miami Dolphins in the AFC Championship game on New Year's Eve. But that was overshadowed by the tragic loss in a plane crash of Roberto Clemente on that day. Mm-hmm. I also know that they lost an AFC divisional game. No, actually, that was Christmas Eve. I'm going to say that the one to Denver was Christmas Eve. I do know that they won just recently, just about 3 or 4 years ago against Cleveland on New Year's Eve. But I'm going to go ahead and say that they are. Are we going back to 1970 or are we going back all time?
Either way, it's the same answer because the games weren't played that late into the season.
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to say 4-3.
It sounds about right. I have no idea.
The answer of 4 is correct for how many times they have played on New Year's Eve. 4 times. And they are 3-1. The only loss was that 72 conference championship They won a playoff game in 1989 in Houston in overtime, 26-23.
Yes.
They won another overtime game in 2006 in Cincinnati, 23-17. That was actually the biggest margin because it was 6 points, but it was an overtime game. And they also beat Cleveland in 2017, 28-24. I was at that one.
What was the significance of the game against the Cincinnati Bengals?
In 06?
Was that the wild card round?
Nope.
No, it was.
Bill Cowher's last game.
Oh,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, it would have been because it was week 17. Yep. There you go. But the other question, which was my real question, if the Pittsburgh Steelers can win on Sunday in Seattle, that would take the number of places where the Steelers under head coach Mike Tomlin have yet to be victorious. That would take that number from 6 down to 5 if they could cross Seattle off the list. Where are the other 5 cities that Mike Tomlin has never won a regular or postseason game against a current opponent?
Well, let me ask you: is there a city on there that no team currently resides?
No, I'm only counting ones that are there.
Okay, so like Oakland. Did he ever win in Oakland?
I don't know. He beat the Raiders. He beat them in Las Vegas. So we'll
okay.
They're in Vegas now. But
yeah. I'm gonna say Jeff's right on that one.
I don't think he's ever won in San Francisco.
He has never won in San Francisco.
You're correct. San Francisco. He's never won in San Francisco.
He's won in Arizona. He has won in Los Angeles. But are we counting the well, he beat the Chargers in Los Angeles, so that doesn't matter.
Yep. He won in Denver?
Yes. Yes.
He did?
He's won in Denver.
Yep. 28-10 in 2009. Monday Night Football.
And he's won in Kansas City. So we can put the West aside. I think you probably need to go. I would say New Orleans would be one of them.
There's another one, New Orleans.
But I think you need to go to the NFC a lot. I know he's won in Tampa and Atlanta, and I know he's won in Carolina. So I would probably say Minnesota. I don't know if he's ever won in Minnesota.
In Detroit.
Okay.
Yes.
One of you two were correct.
Yes, he won in Detroit in 2009 for sure.
And
and in that Martavis Bryant game where he got benched and Juju got his bike stolen and had like a long one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say Minnesota.
Minnesota is correct. Has not won in Minnesota.
He's won in Green Bay. Oh, he's never won in Philly.
Never won in Philly.
He's won in Dallas.
He's won in Washington. He's won in Washington.
And he's
won in New York.
New York. So I guess we need to go back to the AFC?
You do not. Every answer is an NFC opponent. He has won in every AFC.
Oh, he's never won in Chicago.
He's never won in Chicago. There you go. Those are the 6. Philly, San Francisco, Seattle, Minnesota, Chicago, and New Orleans. And just for a fun little bonus, what team / city, it has to be the team, has he won the most on the road? That has the most wins.
Cleveland?
Cincinnati.
And this one goes to Jefferson. It's Cincinnati. 14 wins in Cincinnati, 9 wins in Cleveland, but this would be for next week. If the Steelers can win in Baltimore in week 18, then Baltimore and Cleveland would be tied with 9.
Wow.
So there you go.
Very good. Hey, let's get these super chats before we do final thoughts here. A Steel gives us $4.99, says, if Mason Rudolph delivers the rest of the season, that's great news. If the 2023 NFL season taught us anything, you need 2 solid quarterbacks. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, fellas. Thank you very much for the tip. Happy New Year to you too. And then he also gave us $1.99, says Mason Rudolph, 2 touchdowns to George Pickens and Jalen Warren, 1 rushing touchdown for Najee Harris. Pittsburgh 27-17.
That's my
Love it.
score.
Yep, there you go. There you go. I hope these scores are accurate. All right, let's do some final thoughts. Brian, the Devin Bush stage is yours.
All right, you know where I'm going with the DB here, Devin Bush. Look,
Oh, you mean Devin Bush? Oh, sorry.
I was a huge fan of them making that trade and making that pick. I was celebrating it. I loved it. I should have known when one of his greatest moments as a Pittsburgh Steelers was on draft night when he looked like the Gimp from Pulp Fiction missing the red racquetball in his mouth. That's what he looked like on draft night, and that's probably one of his finest moments. Sure, he had a touchdown against Los Angeles, I believe, in his first or second season, but after he got hurt, he was garbage after that. Now, I never like to call a player trash, but when you talk trash and you act trash, well, you're kind of trashy. And when you're dangling cats off a building and you are woe is me and you've got a problem and you make this a revenge game when the only person you need to take vengeance against is yourself for your attitude. Because look, Pittsburgh Steelers fans would have supported you a whole lot more if you would have not fought them on everything and acted like you were better than what you are. This whole revenge thing, this whole thing about being free and being in Seattle, you haven't done much there. You haven't done much at all. So don't call it a revenge game when the team did right by you by letting you go, because you were terrible here. Sometimes you've got to own it. One thing I'm proud to do on this show is if I'm wrong, I tell you I'm wrong. I'm glad to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong because I picked the Seahawks this week just because I want to be wrong because I'm just superstitious and I'm stupid that way. But Devin Bush, come on. This is what gives players it's really hard to root for players when you do stuff like this. When you talk about how you were wronged when you weren't wrong. You had plenty of time to get back from that injury. It's sad that you didn't get back, and I feel bad for the injury. And that's fine, but you weren't good enough. And when that happens, sometimes you just got to say, hey, I'm in a new place. I wish the Steelers well. But when I see emojis, laughing emojis, when the Pittsburgh Steelers lose a game again on the national stage and you're gloating on that loss, I can't root for you. So, suck it.
All right, Dave, final thoughts.
Well, just to feed a couple things off of what Brian said. I just trust the Steelers' judgment so much more than my own when it comes to drafting players. And if they felt that Devin Bush was good enough to trade up for, I felt that he must have been a good player. Yeah, we were all wrong on that one. But at the same time, I was going to be fine if the Steelers had a consolation prize in the second round, which they ended up not having a second round pick because they traded it for Devin Bush, if they would have drafted one Jermaine Pratt, who has now had a very good NFL career, except getting decleated by Jalen Warren last week, which we should talk about that play every show from now till the end of eternity. Regardless, when it comes to the game on Sunday, you look at the Seahawks injury report and you want to, what's going on with everything? And I don't know enough if this player is really going to be okay and they're just resting him. I don't really care about the Seahawks injury report. I really don't. And it's kind of weird that it's this way, this late into the season. But this game, once again, is really all about the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they play. It's really what the Steelers do, not as much about their opponents. Because if the defense is out there and they're getting the pass rush and they're getting takeaways and the offense is moving the ball while taking care of the ball and getting some explosive plays in there as well, then it doesn't matter who they're playing. So to me, I'm not worried one bit on the injury report for the Seahawks, their inactive list, anything like that. I'm focused completely on this Pittsburgh Steelers team and what they are going to do when they step on the field, and they should be worried about the exact same thing.
There you go. Good stuff. All righty. That does it for another Steelers preview. We'll be back for at least one more of these things as we get ready for the Week 18 game. So hopefully there's more than that. We'll see. It all starts on Sunday. The three of us will be back for a post-game show, so make sure you check us out there. In the meantime, Dave, why don't you send us out like you always do?
Hey.
See you next week. Another Steelers preview.